Late medieval England is not known for its laughter. Most people worked the fields as villeins or freemen, and a bad harvest, or several in a row, was disastrous for the average peasant, or rustici as they were known at the time. Even the better off could be attacked and killed on the road, die young to disease, or find their ends in dozens of other ways, especially when there was a plague or war. So, you might expect that people didn't find much time for laughter between bouts of starvation, disease, and a general lack of having a good day. But you'd be wrong. Humour was abundant in late medieval England, although you might not find it funny. Here is a medieval joke. One merchant asks another, "Are you married?" "I had 3 wives," the second merchant responds, "but all 3 hanged themselves from a tree in my garden." The first merchant retorts, "Pray, give me a cutting from this miraculous tree." It's not a joke you're likely to hear from Russell Howard. Some humour was more akin to what we're used to. Sarcasm, for example, was a common form of humour. In 1305, the future Edward II sent a letter to King Philip IV's half-brother, Louis, promising him an interesting set of gifts. "We are sending you a big trotting palfrey, which can hardly carry its own weight and stand still when it is laden, and some of our misshapen greyhounds from Wales, which can well catch a hare if they find it asleep, and some of our running dogs, which can follow at an amble, for well we know how you love lazy dogs." Later, after the French King Philip VI's fleet was destroyed by the English at the Battle of Sluys in 1340, his Jester was sent to deliver the bad news. He told the king that English sailors don't even have the guts to jump into the water like our brave French. Possibly even more common than sarcastic wit were practical jokes, and generally finding joy in other people hurting themselves. For example, Hocktide, the Monday and Tuesday after Easter, was a medieval festival which involved capturing men and women and only releasing them when they paid a ransom, the money from which would go towards the parish. Men were captured by women on Mondays and vice versa on Tuesdays, and it was considered incredibly funny to lay a noose on the ground and wait for someone to step into it, then yank them up into the air by their ankles, often causing them to bash their head against the ground. They would then be left hanging there until they agreed to pay the ransom. Even when someone injured themselves unintentionally, it could be considered hilarious. One day, King Edward II was riding along the road behind one of his kitchen staff, Maurice. Maurice fell off his horse, and it became clear that there was something wrong with him because he couldn't balance, and after he got back up, he fell off again. At this point, you or me might be concerned and ask Maurice if he's alright. That doesn't occur to King Edward though, who laughs uncontrollably for a while and then, wiping away a tear, gives the man a year's salary as a present. Not to help him get better though, just for making him laugh so much. Sometimes this delight at the pain of others could become incredibly violent. In the Haxie Hood game, the man playing the fool would be entitled to kiss any woman he came across, and at the end of the game he was cut down from the bough of a tree above a fire and badly burnt for his behaviour, to everyone's great enjoyment. Humour in late medieval literature wasn't necessarily more sophisticated. Take Chaucer's Miller's Tale, for example. In it, Chaucer relays the tale of an old carpenter whose wife, Alison, just 18 years old, was sleeping with an Oxford student called Nicholas who lived with them. When the carpenter is away, they sleep together, but Nicholas decides he wants to spend a whole night in Alison's arms, and manages this by convincing the carpenter that God has decided to flood the world a second time, and that the only way to survive is to fasten 3 tubs to the ceiling of the barn, allowing them each to float when the waters come. Whilst all this is going on, a parish clerk called Absalom also fancies Alison and is trying to win her over. Whilst the carpenter is asleep in the tub and Nicholas and Alison are sharing a bed, Absalom goes up to her window in the dark and calls to her. He tells her that if she gives him a kiss, he will go away and leave her and Nicholas alone, and she agrees. "Then make thee ready," quoth she, "I come anon." And unto Nicholas she said, full still, "Now hush, and thou shalt laugh anon thy fill." This Absalom down set him on his knees, and said, "I am a lord at all degrees, for after this I hope there cometh more. Leman, thy grace, and sweet bird, thine oar." The window she undid, and that in haste. "Have done," quoth she, "come off and speed thee fast, lest that our neighbours should thee espy." Then Absalom gan wipe his mouth full dry. Dark was the night, as pitch or as the coal, and at the window out she put her hole. And Absalom him fell ne bet no worse, but with his mouth he kissed her naked arse. Aback he start, and thought it was amiss, for well he wist a woman hath no beard. He felt a thing all rough and long y-haired, and said, Fie, alas, what have I do? Tee-hee, quoth she, and clapped the window to. Jokes about body parts, farting and excrement are common enough in medieval times. Such inventive humour can be found in the margins of religious texts, like this one from the early 14th century. You might ask why religious writings would have so many images of the butts of various creatures, from humans to monkeys, as well as penis trees and other bizarrities. And if you figure it out, then please get in touch with your nearest historian, because I'd love to know. There are theories that the margins were safe places to subvert cultural norms, that the artist was simply demonstrating their artistic skill, or that the drawings were just there to make people laugh. Most marginalia did offer some form of commentary on the text in the main page, but some rather inventive examples are hard to explain. Dr. Johanna Green posts many of these on her Instagram, which I've put in the description of the video. Using humour as a memory aid was not a concept lost on late medieval English folk. A set of texts designed to teach English Oxford students French, called the Manières de Langage, were written to include humour. Notably the use of irony and banter, teaching students the French way to call a friend a scoundrel and tell them to kiss your ass. You could of course use such phrases non-ironically as well, but the text makes clear that they are examples of jokes and irony. Finally, situational comedy was not absent in the late medieval era. Mystery plays, forms of entertainment which saw actors play out scenes from the Bible in the streets of various cities, were often filled with unlikely humour.
Can't start building till we've had a cup of tea.
We have a number of scripts from the performances of mystery plays in the city of York in the north of England, but they were performed in other places across the country too. Take this example of a translated 14th century play which depicts Noah and his wife engaging in some marital bickering after he tells her about the flood and that she must board the ark. Wife: No, I must go home, I must. My tasks are numerous. Noah: Woman, why do you thus? To make us more mischief? Wife: Noah, you might have told me of it. Morning and evening you were out, and always at home you let me sit, never to know what you were about. Noah: My lady, let me be excused for it. It was God's will, without a doubt. Wife: What? You think that you're going just yet? No, by my faith, you're getting a clout. Whether medieval people were bantering with their friends, laughing at bawdy jokes about farts, butts and body parts, finding joy in the injuries of others, accidental or otherwise, or watching skits about husbands bickering with their wives, just like today, their sense of humour derived from the world they lived in. A world that was essentially violent, sensual and religious, and the things they laughed at reflected that. I'll leave you with a joke from a 15th century joke book, written not in England, but in Italy, by a man named Poggio Bracciolini. He spent most of his life in Italy and had worked for 7 different popes by the time he dies. The joke goes like this. A young married woman, on her way to her parents' house, went through a wood with her husband, and seeing rams that were leaping ewes, inquired why they chose them in preference to others. Because, answered her husband, joking, as soon as a ewe farts, the ram leaps her. And with men is it the same? She asked. Yes, was the reply. She immediately let her fart, and the husband, taken at his word, had to pay the penalty of his joke. They had not proceeded much further, but she farted again, and he went through a second performance. The skirts of the wood were well nigh reached when the female, liking the fun of the game, gave a third fart, but he, fatigued by the walk and by his 2 previous operations, exclaimed, "If you were to blow out your very soul, I should not stir again." I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to drop a like or a comment down below. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, then don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support the channel further, then check out the Patreon in the video description. I'll see you next time.